Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I am back to do some stitching with you, and I'm going to be working on a Stitchery swap square as part of the second round Great Big Little Stitchery Swap hosted by the lovely Annie Claxton. So I'll post a link to Annie's channel below this, which explains all the details about the Great Big Little Stitchery Swap. And I happen to have some people that wanted to swap with me in the first round, but I'd already taken on 21 swaps. So I've collected up their names and I'll be swapping with them as part of this second round, which starts in November. So I better get myself stitching. So I have a piece that I want to make for the lovely Kathy, and Kathy has told me that she loves pinks, greens, old gold, flowers, trees. She loves her cat and her dog. So I decided to go with flowers, and I've got some elements here that I'm going to assemble onto my square. So the base I'm using is an old vintage bedspread, which I've used for my other Stitchery swap squares. And then I've grabbed some little squares of fabric from these are the little mini charm packs. I love them because you get a whole variety of fabrics, but just in little squares. As you can see, they're just the size of the sort of palm of my hand. They are 2.5 inch squares. They're from Moda. And this particular selection is called Promenade by Three Sisters. I've got some other lovely blue and linen coloured fabric from Three Sisters. So just a really fun little selection. And I went through and found ones that had this sort of goldy yellow colour tone to it, as well as the pinks and the greens and the florals to pick up on Kathy's style. And then I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to do some thread painting? So I cut a little edge piece off this fabric that I got from the op shop in Malakuta, which has all these beautiful flowers and fruits on it. So I took a little edgy piece and I folded the edge under, and I also just put a little bit of iron-on interfacing, because originally I was thinking maybe I would make a pocket, but I'm thinking I'm inclined to stitch it down onto the piece. So I've got a few elements. I'll come back to this element in a moment. What I'm thinking I'm going to do, got some beautiful vintage lace along here in a beautiful goldy colour. So I was thinking I might have that run along the bottom, position my flower, something like that, so it's sort of coming out towards. Then I'm thinking I've got this little scrap of beautiful lace which I tea dyed, and it went from a white to just this most glorious gold. So I hope that's the sort of old gold that Kathy was talking about. Then I've got a little skerrick of lace that I was thinking I might sort of angle along the top, layer it under this, and something a little bit like this is what I am thinking. Now I've made this little heart because I'm wanting to, with this project, I think the world needs a lot of love right now, so I've decided I'm going to send my little bits of love out into the world, and I have this lovely fabric that has little hearts and all different designs on it. So I cut one of those out. I folded the edges over like you would if you were doing sort of needle turn applique, and then I affixed it to another piece of fabric, which I also got when I was on holidays from one of the op shops in Beechworth. It's a very big piece of fabric. And so I cut a heart out of that matched, and then I went round and using a thicker perle thread, one of the ones like, not the same colour of course, but this sort of thickness of perle thread. I'll see if I can find one that's got a label to tell you which thickness that is. It is DMC 3. I think that's the sizing. And so I went around the edging and just did an over stitch right around the edge, tied some little knots in, made a little hanger, because I figured then it can go on this piece, but it can also then come off separately. And what I am thinking I'm going to do is get one of my lovely vintage mother of pearl buttons I just love going through these. And as I say, sometimes I love the backs of them as much as I love the shiny fronts, because I love where you get to see the little bits of shell as well. See, that one's lovely. You've got that little, I think that's beautiful. I'm going to put that on back to front, I think, because I like that you've got that little goldy bit of shell, almost like a little moon. Can you actually see that? Sorry, I get excited about things like this. So a little moony piece here, and I thought that can be the little hanger for the heart. Hopefully I've made, yeah, I think this will still fit on nicely. And then that can just sort of hang down off the piece, but then when you remove it, you've also got a beautiful piece. So I'll have to have a think about where I put that. I might put it a bit more centrally, and then that way it's not obscuring the flower. I mean, the other option would be to put it down here and have it sort of hang off the piece, which is another option, but I don't know how Kathy's planning to kind of display this, and then if she was cutting it out and putting it into a block, then this might be in the wrong spot. I'll have a think. That's probably the last thing that I will add. So I thought I want to do some thread painting on this, but what I probably need to do is get the other elements stitched down first. So let's see how much we can get done in an hour. So first up, I might put the bottom piece on, then I'll put this one on, unless I want that underneath. Let's just have a look. Do I want this to overlap? Or I think I want this over the top of the lace, and in fact it's got a little dangly bit coming down off it, so I might just trim a little bit of this off. But yeah, never throw away these little skerricks. I had this from when I was working on my Roxy Journal of Stitchery piece recently, and I just put it in a jar, and then I saw it there and I was like, oh, I'm going to use that. Now I want my goldy coloured thread. I think this is a vintage thread from Alex's mum. Just great to have them all in front of me. So I hope you're having a great day or great evening. It's great to be back doing some of my longer stitching videos. I've got so much into the habit of doing my little short stitch along videos that this feels like such a bit of a novelty. It's actually how I kind of started out, but it is good. It was funny, after dinner tonight, I'd just been out in the garden with Travis the pup, and I heard music off in the distance, just really faint. But it was, it was just like, it took me straight back to my childhood, and I thought, that's a Mr. Whippy van. And I know that there's one around the neighbourhood. There's a lovely old man that periodically comes round in his Mr. Whippy van. Now, if you don't know what a Mr. Whippy van is, it's a van that sells like soft serve ice cream and sometimes other things. And you can get, just your regular vanilla, or you can get vanilla dipped in chocolate, or with nuts, or with other toppings, etc. And so I heard this very faint sound. I said to Travis, can you hear the music? And I don't think Travis quite knew what was going on, but he got very excited. Anyway, we waited a bit, and I couldn't hear it getting any louder. In fact, I couldn't even hear it sort of when I went out on the street. So we sat down to relax for a bit after dinner. And then we're sitting on the couch, and then we start hearing the music getting louder. And so we go rushing out to the street. Had my wallet in hand, and got 2 lovely soft serve ice creams as an after dinner treat. So it was quite a lovely thing. So with this, I am just doing little small little nibble stitches, basically, where I pop up and pop down very close to each other, just slightly anchoring a little bit of the lace at a time. And then, as you can see on the, hopefully as you can see on the back, I am doing longer stitches. So this is all just going to anchor everything down nice and securely, so that we can then get stitching, and that way we don't have to have pins in our work, because I do not love working with pins at all. So it is lovely to be back making things for folks. next piece that I'll be making is for the lovely Shrell. So looking forward to that one. I've already got an idea brewing. But it is funny, I do just tend to grab the things that are within the immediate reach and kind of take my inspiration from those, because all of these, I think all of these elements were actually just sitting around the craft desk, and so the inspiration came quickly. I actually had this lace out to use on my Roxy piece as well, but I don't think I've added any of that yet. So it's a tiny bit long at this end, so I'll just take a little nibble off. Not that it matters, it doesn't have to be perfect. So we can continue with our same thread, and I'll position this I think about there, but I do need to have a think about whether this piece, now which way is it meant to go? I sometimes struggle. I think that's the back. I think that's the front. So in fact, we probably need to put our top piece on first. So I will actually just anchor my thread off down here. Like that. So do you have a Mr. Whippy van in your part of the world? Do you have someone that comes around with ice cream or other treats driving down the suburban streets? I would love to hear. I know my good friend, my stitchy friend Leanne in Sydney, I know she has memories of the Whippy van. In fact, I think she's got a cat that's terrified of the Whippy van, the Mr. Whippy van. Oops. What have I done? Managed to... Okay. Came through from the back but caught the lace. That's kind of funny. I would have thought the back would have stopped it more than the lace would, but you never know. Okay. And I've also got beads out, so I'm thinking I can do some lovely embellishment as well. Just want to put enough stitches in just to hold the elements in place, and then we can always come back and do some more decorative sort of over stitching. With the fabric at the back, I've actually just used just my little glue stick to just attach that down, because I figure we'll be stitching all over the surface of it, so it will get stitched down in that process. So it just means that it forms a nice little solid base for me. But I find the Yoo-hoo stick is perfectly fine to stitch through. I wouldn't stitch through it when it's wet, but it dries pretty quickly. I just popped the pieces of fabric down last night, and then it was ready to go. But it would even be ready to go in a shorter time than that. I know some people use the expensive glues for EPP, for English paper piecing, or some people just don't like using any glues at all. But I find the Yoo-hoo glue, it just forms not a full-on bond. Like, I'd be able to happily pull these ones off if I really wanted to, but it forms enough of a bond that I don't have to fiddle with pins, which is always a happy day in my world when I do not have to fiddle with pins. So I think I might just put 1 or 2 more stitches in across here. Again, I'm just using a colour of thread that just coordinates with the background, so you don't even really sort of see it, it just blends in. And then I am just popping up and down sort of relatively close to where I pop up. I pop down just to put those little nibble stitches in, but then doing longer stitches on the back to make sure I kind of get across the fabric. That's probably fine. So you can see I've just sort of, wended my way across there. And I'll put a knot in here. Perfect. Put that in my orchard. So that's nice. Again, I can just, doesn't really matter in slow stitch, you can have a raggedy edge, but just trim it so it's mostly in line. Take that bit off. And then we can stitch down our little flower. And so yeah, I just love when you even have just a little edgy piece and where it's even fraying. I just think it adds a lovely touch and sort of gives the impression of things kind of coming onto the piece as though they're creeping around the corner, or you've just captured just this little part of a bigger scene. So it's a really smart way to be able to kind of add in more elements in a limited space, because these are 10 centimetre by 10 centimetre squares, which is not huge, but you can actually fit a fair bit in, which is great. And I do just like doing this layering where you've got beautiful fabrics underneath, laces over the top, beads, stitching, etc. So I might even have this come down. I just don't want this going too much over the flower above. So I reckon if I bring that down to about there, that's nice. So again, just little nibble stitches just to anchor it down for now. We can always come back and do more stitches at the end to make sure the piece is fully intact. But we'll first of all see what we might want to add to the top of this. I'm thinking some beads would be lovely in the center and maybe on the little fronds. So let me know if you're taking part in the great big little Stitchery swap. And he also hosts an art swap as well. So if you haven't come across Annie Claxton, definitely check her out. She's so much fun, such a lovely spirit as well. She's a real kindred spirit. We've never met. Who knows? We might never meet. I hope one day she might come to Australia. Who knows? She'd definitely have a place to stay and a place to hang out. I would love to meet her one day, but in the meantime, she is a lovely YouTubey friend to have. So she is a very good YouTuber and just a lovely soul. So I'll just knock this one off here. And something Annie and I share in common is we love looking at the backs of pieces, the back sides as Annie likes to call them. So then I think we'll put this one over here, and so I might even just put in a couple of little stitches just to hold it in place. So I'll just pick some spots where there's a little bit of yellow. In fact, actually, I'm not even sure I'm going to do that intensive thread painting up there, so I might actually just anchor it down in this center where I know I'm going to do French knots and other bits and pieces. Now I managed to pull that all the way through from the back. Did I not tie a knot in it? That's possible. I think there's a knot there. So I'm just going to put a stitch in here and a stitch over here. Hear gremlins at my door, opening my door. I think it's Alex curious who I'm talking to, but it is the great World Wide Web. It's my YouTube buddies, that's what I say. It's my stitchy friends. They're in my craft room. We're having a craft along. I hope you're stitching while you're watching this. So I reckon that's probably enough stitches just to hold that in place. And then we can get on to some thread painting. Do love my thread painting. It's been a super windy day here. I've mentioned before that we're on a hill here, and when it gets windy, but it's a super windy night as well. It's that, I think, northerly. I don't know if it's changed yet to a cooler wind, but I think it's the northerly coming through. So I've grabbed out a few second-hand vintage Appleton wools or Cascade House wools. This one's Appleton. These ones don't have a label on them. So I am thinking that I will use these colours. So what I've looked for is like that colour, and I've got this one. I've then got this pinky colour for one of the pinks. I've got this for the pinky red that's in the centre. I've got some green for the centre, some more yellow there. And then I do have some whitey bits for up here, as well as I have some just a crochet yarn that I thought I might use in some way up here, or otherwise I might just go over the edge with a thin embroidery, not embroidery, a thin regular cotton, and maybe just do some little extension stitches out from it. So we'll get to that bit. But let's start with some thread painting. So I might get the edges anchored down, I think, and so I might start off with some of this wool. Let's have a look if it's pre-cut. No, it's one big piece. Some of the ones I get from Melanie, Purveyor of Reclaimed Textile, some of them are cut, but some of them are full long pieces like this. Now with wool you don't want to go too big. Some people say it should be sort of from your elbow to your hand. Just get those out of the way. And this is, I think, a chenille needle. But sometimes it can be just a little bit trickier with the wools to get the needle threaded. I could use a needle threader, but I'm still stubbornly doing it without one. And again, sometimes tying a knot this way on the wools doesn't work particularly well, but on this occasion it has worked okay. So I'm going to just start putting some long and short stitches in, and what I'm going to do is overlap right to beyond the edge, the raw edge of the fabric, and then I'm going to pop up sort of just nearby so that I'm not wasting thread on the back, and I'm going to come down. So I'm not planning to thread paint the entire flower. I'm planning to sort of do a bit more of a, I don't know, a sketchy paint, because I think it is a lovely fabric, so I don't want to go all over it. You can see another video recently where I've done a very intense thread painting on my Roxy Journal of Stitchery piece. But yeah, I thought it might be interesting to show you something a bit more sketchy. Just picking out sections that you really want to play up. Now, where was my thread there? And so this is just going to help to anchor down the edges, but also shade it. So with thread painting, I always say just sort of, yeah, give it a go. Don't judge it too early. Just see how you feel about it as you start to get the bits down. I might kind of look at that and go, oh, that looks a bit strange, but no, I'm going to keep working my way around, and you will be amazed as you build up. It just starts to become something. So I'm always wanting to kind of think, what's the way that the petals are going, and what way do I kind of want to have my stitches go? So I'm going to angle this stitch a little bit down. So when you're doing this particular style of stitching it, yeah, you'll kind of follow where the colours go. When you're doing that more over stitching that colours in an entire sort of flower, like I did on the Roxy Journal of Stitchery piece, you can actually, yeah, you can even change the colours of the sections that you're painting because you're going to cover them fully over. Whereas here I'll need to stay true to the colours, although I could obviously be adding sort of accent colours as well. Like if I really wanted to, I could come through this section and add some pinks as well, radiating out a bit like a bit of a variegated flower effect. Again, I want to just angle my stitches a smidge more, I think. I've been doing what I said not to do, which is doing the long stitches on the back as well as on the front. Whereas if I want to conserve my thread, I will pop up and down close to the previous stitch. So as you can see, I'm just angling a little bit because I want this petal to kind of look like it comes around a bit. Put one in there and one in this little space here. So as you can see, it's just starting to give a nice little effect. So we'll keep going while we've got this thread on here, and then we can do some other bits. So I'm looking at this little petal and thinking, how do I want to do that thread painting? I think I might bring it down. Do a little sort of V shape down. That's probably enough there actually. And then down here, I guess the petal sort of coming down from here down to there. And then I might just do some little down and up stitches. I really do love thread painting. It is fun, and I love working in wools and silks, textural fibres. You can get the sort of thicker tapestry wools. I've got a whole drawer of those up on my little shelf, and they'll fill in a space a lot quicker. But I wanted something more delicate for this more sort of sketchy style filling. Sure, there's a better artistic word for this kind of approach to not like fully filling in a space. So then I've got this petal sort of coming out like this. I guess I might do another little triangle-y effect here. And come over here, up to there. And then just put some little radiating stitches in. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I should say what I am doing, not what I'm doing. That's not very good. And now, do I want these? I think I want these ones coming down on this sort of an angle. Almost out of my woolly wool. Although I do have more I can put on, but probably should actually finish off all the yellows first, and then we can go on with the other colour, given we're almost there. So I might cut myself another piece. Try not to get it tangled. So what I would say is don't be afraid by thread painting. There's nothing particularly intimidating about it. There is no one right way or wrong way. Depends what effect you're wanting, and it's a great technique to just play around with and experiment. Just like painting, you kind of have to give it a go to kind of work out, yeah, I mean, you get better with painting and thread painting and stitching. Just give it a go, but don't be overly critical, and don't criticize your work too early when you're doing it. Don't go, oh, that looks strange, when you haven't actually given it a chance to kind of for the piece to come together. It's the massing of stitches that make most of our Stitchery projects, especially in slow stitch. It's about all the details, and the imperfections often actually make the piece, because we don't want to create something that looks like it came out of a machine. The great thing with this is, as well as adding accents and the paint with the thread, you're also getting all your edges down, so it's serving a dual purpose. As I say, I toyed with the idea of making this a bit of a pocket, but then I decided, no, I'll put my little heart on the front. I don't know if I mentioned as well, I've got my little French laundry labels attached to the back, which spell out love and then CO, my initials. So I thought that was a nice little way to send some love out into the world with these pieces. I do hope you are doing well. I hope you're crafting, or your stitchery, or even just watching other people do those things. If for some reason you can't be doing that yourself, hopefully it's bringing you solace and joy, because I think we all need that extra little bit of joy at the moment with everything that's happening in the world. That's why I just love this Stitchery swap, the ability to bring, yeah, just real pleasure and happiness to people by having something arrive in their post box that's been created especially for them by another set of hands, lovingly created. So I think it's just the most wonderful thing. Just so grateful that Annie had this crazy, wonderful, fabulous idea and shared it with all of us, as she so generously does with her ideas and her inspiration. So I'm just picking out some of the little specks of yellow, because again, that all adds, sometimes you might think, oh, it doesn't even kind of look like it should have that colour there, but if you follow the sort of artist's design, you'll be amazed how it does all come together. So I am still just sticking to little sketchy type sort of stitches, not filling in the entire area. Hopefully I'll be able to show you that this is a manageable project to do in about an hour. I mean, I faffed around probably talking about it for the first 10 minutes or so. So now I'm going to jump up to the center, so I'm just going to put a few little stitches in the back as I go up to where I want to be next. Just making sure I haven't come through to the front. And then I want to do, I think, some little French knots here. Do about 3 wraps to make a French knot. If you haven't done French knots before, I've shared them in my stitch along videos, so you can navigate over there and find them. I think they'll be under F, unless they're under K for knot. But we're working alphabetically through our stitches. So they do just add a lovely textural element. If you're doing them, you just want a needle that's about the same width up and down, because you need to slide your little loops of thread over the eye of the needle, so you don't want it to be too bulbous. So just put a couple more little Frenchy knots in, and then we can probably come back afterwards and do some green French knots as well for that centre area. Put a little stitch, actually I can come back and do that, put another one in here. I might end up needing some more yellow as I finish off, because the French knots do take a little bit extra. Okay, and there's one up here. Okay, and then we'll jump over to here. And this is where I haven't worked out yet whether I'm going to do heavy stitchery or not. We will come back and have a look at the end. So I'm just going to put a few little stitches in here. Might do a few over here. Okay, and then I'll tie that off, and then I think we'll start doing some of our thread stitching with the pink. So I think I'll do the lighter pink next, and then I can come over it with the deeper pink. Again, I think this is a long piece, so I might just chop myself 2 pieces here. Okay. All right, well, let's start. Maybe we'll start over. Where to start? Where to start, Christine? Where do you want to start? Maybe over here. Sometimes you just sort of see somewhere and you think, oh yeah, I know how I want to do that piece. And so starting off, that's always the key. That's why it's good sometimes turning the camera on, otherwise you can and ah about stuff and go, oh, I don't know. When you pop the camera on, you've got to get going. You've got to get stitching. So much fun playing with bits and arranging them and picking out colours. Sometimes we just like playing in our stash, don't we? Now this petal, I might do some stitches down this way. So as you can see, this pink's a bit more, I guess, pinky intense than the actual pink of the petals. But as it starts to go on, it just, yeah, it performs a nice melding effect, I think. And you're still seeing the colours from underneath as well. So it doesn't have to be an exact match either. these petals coming out sort of like that, so I might even try and do a little curvy stitch. Let's see how we go, and I might even couch that down. So what I'm going to do is place my stitch in, pull it a little bit, and then put a little holding stitch just to pop up one side of where I want it to be on that little curvy bit, and then take my needle back into the fabric in the same spot and just have that little curviness happening. And I might be able to bring this one up like that, and then I'll come down and actually that's probably a little bit close, that second stitch. It's almost like right on top, which I don't really want to do that. So I'll just pull that one through and relay it in, I think. Oops. Boom. Luckily I didn't tip over my beads. I just have them in a little container next to me and bump them with my hand. Sometimes with the wool it's easier to fold it over and to then thread your needle that way. Right, so I might do a shorter, sorry, just positioning it so it comes up a bit more at an angle. Again, get my scissors out of the way. Still feel like that's sitting. Maybe I'll put another little couching stitch in just to hold that a smidge over. Don't want it to look like it's laying right next to the other stitch, because it sort of loses that sketchy effect. Sometimes your threads can get a little bit knotty, particularly where they're knotting against something else. Oh, that's right, because I left that thread. I was going to tie it onto the other thread, but I didn't, did I? So I probably need to just put a knot in there, and might need to knot that better actually afterwards. Wonder if I can, maybe I'll just knot that down here. Use that thread, put a little knot there, make sure that one doesn't move, and then again, just stitching down to just add those little sketchy stitchy bits in. And I'll come over to this bit. And because your stitches are starting and ending in different spots, it just helps to avoid it kind of looking too irregular. So it just sort of gives that sense of movement on the leaf, the curvature and stuff. I don't think I'm very eloquent tonight to say and stuff. That's not really that's not really great, Christine, but that's okay. The end of a long working day, and I just really felt the need to, as I do every evening, but I really was looking forward to coming and stitching into this piece. I've had a good break from doing the Stitchery swap squares, because after the 21 I did, I think I had felt a little bit exhausted, I think, by it. Loved doing it, but just had that little sense that I needed to give myself a proper break so I could come back with full inspiration and do beautiful special things for the folks. So I think some of my Stitchery swap squares were, Stitchery swap partners were raring to go, but I just said, oh, just hold your horses. Need to have a little bit of a downtime. I thought I was actually going to get back to this in September, but it's taken me a bit longer. Has been a bit of a nutso time though in work-wise and things. So I'm going to give myself a break. As in not sort of hold myself to silly levels of account, because ultimately this is something we are doing for pleasure and joy. So sometimes if we need to do something at a different pace, that is a-okay, I reckon. Obviously I don't want to disappoint anyone either, but that's why I just reached out to the folks and said, I will definitely get to it, just probably not quite as soon as originally I thought. Determined just to use this little bit of pink thread down here like this. There we go. Tie it off at the back, put a little knot in place. Another little knot, and that will be that. So that's how it's looking so far, which I'm pretty pleased with, I'd have to say. So I'll then show you what it looks like as we start to bring in some of this colour. Oops, if I can not tangle it as I pull it off. So this is Cascade House Shaded Cruel Wool 4050 is I think the colour, 8. But I've not bought any of these new. All of these have been second-hand, mostly from Melanie, purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles. Some I think I've got from sort of Facebook Marketplace or other hauls, but a lot from Melanie. Sort of quite tempting because it's very easy to buy and then just pick them up, because she just lives not far away at all. Just going to come and now start filling in this darker area. Again, just aiming to give that sort of, that sense of movement to the leaves. I mean, not the leaves, the petals. And I don't mind if these stitches sort of meld in and extend down into where the other stitches are. It's quite nice to kind of do a bit of that mixing. This might be another one where I do a longer stitch and put a little couchy sort of stitch in. So I'm using the same thread to couch it down. And it just helps me to get a little curve, which is nice to have. I could of course do 2 stitches, but then you don't kind of get that sense of it, stretching around. going to bring these ones down here. I will come through with the pink as well. But just want to give you a sense of how I approach the shading task. And so I'm thinking in tomorrow's episode we might come back and add embellishments and things. I can probably do some more because I won't in this 1 hour episode get all the thread painting done, but I wanted to show you most of the kind of approach that I would take. So I might finish the red off here, even though I've got a lot of wool left because I didn't follow my own rules and use a smaller length. I used the large length that came off the hank, which I probably should have really cut in half, but that's okay. So I'm just going to tie that off so we can just have a go at working out what we're going to do up the top in that lighter area. So I've got this lighter wool. I did think that I had some in this colour, but maybe it's in this thicker yarn. Or maybe I used what I had in my Roxy piece. No, I do have some others of the. I have duplicate ones of these in the cupboard. But I am just having a look, and I think these would be a bit too thick for this piece, so I'm not going to use those. So I could either use just a regular embroidery floss. So I probably do have some things in that sort of lighter colour scheme. I'm just looking for my more lighter browny colours. See, that could be okay if I used maybe 3 strands of that. It's probably the best that I've got in this little wallet, but I'm sure I do have some other ones. These are more yellows. Sorry, just rifling through my colours. That's too light, I think. Or the other option is I use my crochet yarn. I think I might use that. I quite like the little glisten. I quite like that it has a bit of tonage. No, I don't think that's tonal similarity to. Let's have a look how that looks. Oops, trying to pick up my thread. Just wanting to make sure I haven't skewered the thread. No. This is a beautiful vintage crochet yarn that I love collecting all different colours of. So, sorry, that was a table creaking, not me. I promise. So let's see how this looks. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that we have to undo it or stitch over it, but again, don't judge too early. You just gotta give it a bit of a go. Main thing is I want to be stitching over those edges so that this all just holds it down. Again, I'm just suspending my judgment until I get a few pieces in place just to see how it looks once it starts to mass. And I can also always add a bit of yellow or something to it if I really felt that it needed it. Or indeed even some pinkiness to it as well could even be done. Quite like how the lines are kind of replicating the lines that are on the fabric up there. Don't mind that at all. And from here, I guess we might just sort of go out at this angle because I've already started with a little V of the yellow threads. And I'll also obviously be interspersing my lighter whites back into this as well, so that will soften down. So we'll get this bit of the petal done, and then let's have a play with that white. Wasn't sure if I got the angle done right there, but I think it's going to work. Just had to adjust a little bit as I went. It's always just thinking, what way do you want it to look like the petals sort of coming back in which case you then have it thicker at one end and sort of narrowing back into a central point, if that makes sense. Laying it flat, so I'll tie that off there, and then we might just quickly put in some whitey coloured shading. Don't know why I had double width there. Hopefully I haven't left something. Might have to fix that up in a minute. I think I've left a tail on this side, but that's okay. We'll sort it. Or maybe it will just stay as a textural element. Who knows? Let's grab some of this Appleton. Okay. I think I might even use it just to soften in and just come in on these, even though this in the design didn't have any white on it. I just think it might work nicely sort of interspersed. And so this is an example where you can do a little bit of colour changing or a little bit of just adding your own design elements to the piece. Popping that in like that. And then I'll come up and do some of the other just more pure whitey bits as well. So Again, I'll just bring my yarn kind of around, angling. Then we'll come up to the top. Just adding the white accents up here. And again, anchoring down our edges as well in the process, which is very handy. So I'll draw this video to a close, but we will come back tomorrow. I'll finish doing this same sort of thread painting on the rest of the piece, and you'll be able to see how it all looks. I might have a look if I can. I think I'm happy with that, but I will have a look if I do happen to have any of this Appleton type wool in my cupboard that I could use up here. But otherwise, I think that's going to work. And then we'll come back tomorrow and do some embellishment, including adding a little button to hang this on, and adding beads and doing some other stitching to just add extra lovely textile texture to the piece. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully you got something out of that, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow with the next installment of this video. Thanks everyone. Bye.